Welcome to Trending One Podcast. In this episode, we dive into female fitness and nutrition tips. Let's get started.
We're diving deep today into this amazing interview with Dr. Stacy Sims, and let me tell you, she is like flipping the script on fitness and nutrition for women.
You know, what I find so fascinating about Dr. Sims' work is that she starts by acknowledging something, well, pretty basic. Most of the traditional fitness advice we hear, yeah, it's based on research, but research done on men. And she's like, hello, women, not just smaller men.
Right, like we're not just men in mini form.
Exactly. We have totally different hormonal systems, different recovery needs, and we even respond differently to things like, oh, I don't know, fasting and intense exercise.
Okay, so let's talk fasting for a sec, because it seems like everyone and their mother is doing it these days. But Dr. Sims, she drops a bit of a truth bomb here, doesn't she?
Totally. See, women, we naturally have a higher proportion of these things called oxidative muscle fibers. Basically, it means our bodies, they're already pros at using fat for fuel.
Interesting.
So that whole fasting to jumpstart your metabolism thing might not be as necessary for women. In fact, she actually argues that it can backfire, especially for women who are athletes.
Now that's a plot twist. Why would fasting be a bad thing, especially for active women?
Well, think about it. When we restrict calories like crazy, especially when we're training hard, it's like sending our bodies this big old stress signal.
Makes sense.
And when that happens, cortisol, that stress hormone, it spikes. Not exactly what we want when we're trying to build muscle and recover like champs.
Right, cortisol is not our friend.
Nope. And Dr. Sims points out that this whole cortisol spike thing, it can actually sabotage our progress. We're talking fatigue, even messing with our cycles, which we'll get into later.
Okay, so note to self, ditch the starvation diet. So what does Dr. Sims recommend instead?
It's not about deprivation, not at all. It's more about like syncing up with our bodies, you know, working with our natural rhythms. She's all about eating in tune with our circadian rhythms.
You mean like our sleep-wake cycle?
Exactly, that whole natural ebb and flow. And of course, making sure we're fueling those workouts properly.
So what does that look like in real life? Does this mean I have to, like, ditch my morning coffee and roll straight out of bed and into the gym?
No way. Dr. Sims is all about finding what works for you. Like, she gave this great example, adding a scoop of protein powder to your morning coffee with some almond milk. Quick, easy, and it fuels you up.
Okay, now that's something I can get behind. Speaking of things we need to pay more attention to, let's talk strength training. Dr. Sims had some, shall we say, strong opinions about how women should be approaching strength training, especially as we, navigate the different stages of life.
Oh yeah, and it's pretty cool because she's like tossing out that old lift light weights for 1,000,000 reps advice that's been floating around since, well, forever.
Right, like what is that about?
And while that might work for some women, especially when we're younger, Dr. Sims is like, as we age, ladies, we gotta be smarter. We need to be strategic about challenging those muscles.
So you're saying ditch the pink dumbbells and head straight for the barbells.
It's not so much about the equipment itself, but the intention behind it, you know? Dr. Sims really emphasizes that as estrogen, our natural strength booster, starts to decline, well, we gotta work smarter, not necessarily harder.
Okay, I'm listening.
She's all about lifting heavier with good form, of course. Can't stress that enough to really get those muscles firing and keep us strong as we, shall we say, mature.
I love that she emphasizes good form because nobody wants to be sidelined with an injury.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is she actually gave some really great resources for those of us who might be new to this whole heavier lifting thing.
Oh, absolutely. Like she mentioned Kelly Starrett's mobility work, which is amazing for like improving your range of motion and preventing injuries before they happen. And she shouted out some awesome coaches too, like Haley and Bree, who have these fantastic programs specifically designed for women who want to, conquer those big compound lifts.
Yes, squats, deadlifts, overhead presses, all those powerhouse movements.
Exactly.
Dr. Sims is all about building that solid foundation for long-term health. But it's not about going heavy 24/7, right?
Yeah.
She mentioned something called reps in reserve. Says it's a game changer for women as we age.
Ah, yes. Reps in reserve. This is key to her approach. It's like being in tune with how much you got left in the tank during your workouts.
Okay, give me an example.
So say you're doing a set of 8 squats. You hit 8, but deep down you could probably crank out 1 or 2 more if you really had to. Those extra reps you've got stashed away, those are your reps in reserve.
Interesting. So it's like having this internal gauge for your exertion level,
Yeah.
making sure you're challenging yourself, but not like completely obliterating yourself in the process?
Exactly. And this is where it gets super interesting for us ladies, especially as we get older. When we're younger, we can afford to push closer to that limit, leave fewer reps in reserve. Our bodies, they bounce back like it's nothing. But as those estrogen levels start to naturally decline,
We need a new game plan.
exactly, Dr. Sims recommends shifting gears a bit. Instead of always gunning for total muscle failure, she's all about focusing on those heavier weights, fewer reps, and making sure we're leaving a couple reps in reserve.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Why is that so important for women, especially as we, shall we say, become more seasoned?
Because it all comes down to our bodies and how they respond to stress. Dr. Sims explained that heavy lifting, when we're mindful of those reps in reserve, it triggers this really powerful response in our central nervous system.
Hold on, our central nervous system. I thought we were just talking about building muscles.
It's all connected, you see. This response we get from lifting heavy but smart with those reps in reserve, it's like key for staying strong, keeping that coordination sharp, and even, get this, supporting brain health as we age.
Wow, so we're not just building muscle, we're building resilience, like giving our brains and bodies this awesome anti-aging boost.
Exactly. And it's a perfect example how Dr. Sims is like thinking beyond the surface. You know, it's about like really getting how our bodies work, those deep connections, and figuring out how to work with them, not against them.
And speaking of working with our physiology, I gotta ask about something I've been trying out, cold exposure. I'm hooked on these morning cold plunges, but I've heard mixed things about whether they're like as beneficial for women. What's Dr. Sims' take?
See, this is where it gets really interesting, understanding those differences between men and women. When we're talking cold exposure, women might actually benefit from things being a little warmer, you know,
Yeah.
not frigid. It's about finding that sweet spot where you're getting those good effects, but not sending your body into this like extreme vasoconstriction mode.
Vaso what now? Break that down for me.
Okay, so vasoconstriction is basically when your blood vessels, they do this whole narrowing thing to try to conserve heat.
Okay, makes sense.
It's a natural response to cold, right? But it can be more intense for women, especially in like our hands and feet.
Ah, so our extremities get it worse.
Exactly. So that quick cold plunge might be no big deal for most guys, but for some women, it's like sending their system into overdrive, which, you know, not always a good thing.
So it's not about avoiding the cold altogether, but being like smarter about it, more mindful.
Exactly.
Okay, so what about the opposite end of the spectrum? Heat exposure. I know Dr. Sims is a big fan of sauna, especially for women.
Oh, yeah. Sauna is like Dr. Sims' secret weapon. It's amazing for your metabolism, keeps your insulin happy, and can even help with those, well, you know, hot flashes that can pop up during perimenopause and menopause.
Okay, now that's something I can get behind. I love a good sauna session. But how does sweating it out in a hot box actually help with, like, hot flashes? Seems a little counterintuitive, right?
It does, but think of it like this. When you regularly expose your body to heat, like in a sauna, it's like giving your internal thermostat this workout, you know?
Training it.
Yes. It learns how to regulate your temperature better, more efficiently. So when those hot flashes hit, your body's like, bring it on, I got this.
So we're basically teaching our bodies to chill out.
Exactly. Plus, sauna boosts serotonin production in your gut, which plays a role in temperature regulation. So it can actually help, like, dial down the intensity and frequency of those hot flashes.
That's a win-win in my book. And on top of all those benefits, Dr. Sims also mentioned this really cool protocol for using sauna to get this enhanced athletic performance.
Yeah. She was explaining how by hopping in the sauna after a workout, when you're already a little dehydrated, it can actually, like, kickstart your body into producing more red blood cells.
Wait, so you're saying we can naturally increase our red blood cell count just from hitting the sauna?
It's true. It's all about how our bodies respond to that combo of heat and dehydration. Like another cool example of using simple, natural things to optimize our physiology.
Okay, adding this to my routine ASAP. So we train hard, sweat it out in the sauna, and boom, we're basically superhuman.
Well, maybe not superhuman, but definitely working smarter. Right?
Yeah.
And don't forget hydration. Dr. Sims was really adamant about rehydrating slowly after the sauna to really maximize those blood-boosting benefits.
Got it. Slow and steady wins the red blood cell race. Speaking of things that contribute to, like peak performance, we got to talk nutrition. And Dr. Sims had some really interesting advice for women, especially when it comes to protein.
Protein is huge. And she really emphasized that women, we often need way more than we think, especially as we age. She recommends shooting for at least 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. every single day.
Wow, that's a lot more protein than I'm probably getting.
Yeah.
What's the best way to make sure I'm hitting that target?
Dr. Sims is all about real food first, of course. So think lean meats, fish, eggs, beans, lentils, all those good things.
Right.
But she also mentioned that protein powder can be a really helpful tool. You know, like if you're struggling to hit that protein goal from just food alone.
Makes sense. What about other nutrition recommendations? Did she have any, like, favorite foods or things she always recommends?
She is a huge fan of colorful fruits and veggies, you know, for all that fiber and those micronutrients. And of course, healthy fats from avocados, nuts, seeds, olive oil, that kind of thing.
Okay, so we're talking about a balanced whole foods approach here, not some crazy restrictive diet.
Exactly. She even said it's totally fine to enjoy your favorite treats every now and then. Life's all about balance, right?
Amen to that. Now, I got to ask about something that I know a lot of women are thinking about. Birth control.
Mm.
How does the pill specifically play into everything we've been talking about?
This is where it gets super interesting. So Dr. Sims, she gave this little history lesson on the pill. And basically, while it was originally designed to mimic a woman's natural cycle, it actually ends up creating a different hormonal profile in our bodies.
So even though we might be getting our period on the pill, it's not like a true period.
Exactly. It's more of a withdrawal bleed, not a real reflection of what our hormones are doing naturally. And she explained that this can really impact how our bodies respond to, well, everything, our training, nutrition, even our stress levels and moods.
Wow, I had no idea.
Yeah.
So what does this mean for women who are on the pill? Should we be doing things differently?
Honestly, there's no one-size-fits-all answer. It really depends on the person, the type of pill they're on, and how their body reacts to it.
Good.
But Dr. Sims really stressed that if you're on the pill and you're noticing any negative side effects, or if you feel like your workouts or your diet just aren't working the way they used to, it's worth chatting with your doctor about maybe trying a different type of pill or exploring other options.
So knowledge is power, as they say. Now, before we move on, we have to talk about another major life stage.
Yeah.
Perimenopause and menopause. These are times of major hormonal shifts, and I think a lot of women are looking for guidance on how to navigate this transition and, feel their best.
Absolutely. And Dr. Sims is a wealth of knowledge in this area.
Yeah.
She really emphasized that this is not the time to throw in the towel on our health.
Yeah.
In fact, she says it's more crucial than ever to prioritize our well-being.
So what does that look like, practically speaking?
Well, first and foremost, she's a huge advocate for strength training, especially during this time.
Because of the estrogen decline.
Exactly. As we know, estrogen starts to naturally decline during perimenopause and menopause, which can lead to bone loss and losing muscle mass. But Dr. Sims is like, we can fight back. She says that by doing regular strength training, especially those heavy compound movements we talked about, yeah, we can actually offset some of those changes.
So it's like we're giving our bodies this fighting chance to stay strong and resilient, even as our hormones are, doing their thing.
Exactly. And it's not all about the weights either. She's a big fan of jump training during this time too.
Jump training?
Yeah. She said even just 10 minutes of jumping 3 times a week can make a huge difference in bone density.
Jump training, you say?
Yeah.
I haven't jumped since I was 10. But hey, I'm willing to try it if it means strong bones.
Right. It's worth it.
What about nutrition during this time? Any specific things women should focus on?
Protein is still crucial, maybe even more so now.
More protein.
Yeah, she explained that as we get older, our bodies just don't use protein as efficiently, so we need to up our intake to really maintain that muscle mass and strength.
So we might even be talking about more than that 1 gram per pound of body weight that we talked about earlier.
It might need to be adjusted a bit, yeah, especially for women who are still very active.
Makes sense.
And she also recommended incorporating adaptogens, which can be super helpful for managing stress and keeping those hormones balanced.
Adaptogens, it's like nature's chill pill.
Right.
But Dr. Sims didn't just stop at nutrition and exercise, did she?
No way.
She also talked about sleep, managing stress, finding activities you actually enjoy.
It's all connected, right?
It's about taking this whole holistic approach to well-being, especially during this time of life.
Absolutely.
And speaking of holistic, remember those supplements?
Oh, yeah.
I want to circle back because I'm really curious about, how she uses them strategically and what her top picks are. Let's start with creatine. Now, I know some women might be like, wait, isn't that just for guys who are trying to bulk up?
Yeah.
But Dr. Sims, she debunks that myth.
Oh, yeah, she shuts that down real quick. She's like, creatine is for everyone. And it's not just about building muscle either. It's super beneficial for brain health, mood, even gut health.
So it's like the ultimate multitasker for women. I like it. How much are we talking about here?
She recommends about 3 to 5 grams daily of creatine monohydrate.
Okay.
Preferably the Creepure brand, because apparently it's made in a way that minimizes any potential side effects.
Good to know. Good to know.
Yeah.
Now, what about vitamin D3? I know it's supposed to be great for our bones, but what else does it do for us, especially as we navigate perimenopause and menopause?
Well, she highlighted how important it is for iron absorption, which is huge for women. We tend to be more prone to iron deficiency anyway, so.
We need all the help we can get,
Exactly.
especially if we're, still crushing those workouts. Any advice on dosage?
She generally recommends somewhere between 2,000 to 5,000 IUs daily. But as always, it's smart to check in with your doc to find out what's right for you.
Okay, so we've got our creatine, vitamin D3. Now let's talk about those adaptogens you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
I feel like she was super into those, especially for women going through big hormonal shifts.
Oh, for sure. Adaptogens are they help your body deal with stress, right?
Right.
Dr. Sims really likes ashwagandha and holy basil or tulsi. They're known for their calming, stress-reducing effects.
I've definitely heard of ashwagandha, but tulsi is new to me. What's the deal with that?
Tulsi is super cool. It's this herb that's been used in Ayurvedic medicine for forever.
Oh, wow.
And it's really good for helping your body adapt to stress and just kind of promoting this sense of calm and well-being.
Okay, I'm adding that to my list. Now, for those of us juggling a million things, any specific times of day that are best for taking these adaptogens?
She recommended taking ashwagandha and tulsi later in the day, late afternoon, early evening,
Right.
because that's when cortisol, our stress hormone, naturally starts to wind down. So it can help you relax and sleep better.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Now, you also briefly mentioned another adaptogen, Chandra, I think. What's the scoop with that one?
Oh yeah, Chandra is really interesting. It's actually known for boosting focus, mood, and cognitive function.
Okay.
Dr. Sims even said that some people compare its effects to Adderall, but without the jitters or that nasty crash later.
Wow, that's impressive. I have to check that one out. Is there an optimal time to take it?
Since it's a bit more stimulating, she recommended taking it in the morning or even as a mid-afternoon pick-me-up. Plus, it doesn't mess with your sleep.
Love it. So much good info. But I have to ask, what about women who are pregnant or thinking about becoming pregnant? Did Dr. Sims have any advice for this, really transformative time?
Definitely. She emphasized that staying active during pregnancy is amazing, for both mom and baby, but it's all about adjusting your intensity and really listening to your body.
So does that mean ditching the high-intensity stuff altogether?
Not necessarily. She said you can often keep doing the activities you love. You might just need to modify them a bit as, things progress. If you're a runner, maybe you transition to walking or swimming as your belly grows.
Right. Makes sense. What about strength training? Is it safe to lift weights during pregnancy?
Yes, totally. She actually encouraged it, saying it can help prep your body for labor and delivery. Again, it's all about tuning into your body, adjusting the weight and intensity as needed.
Music to my ears. Now, what about food? Any specific recommendations for what to eat during pregnancy?
She really stressed getting enough calories and protein, to support both you and the little one.
Right, gotta fuel the growth.
Exactly. And then, of course, iron and folate are also super important. Basically, it's all about a balanced, nutrient-rich diet, just with a few other things to keep in mind.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, I know a lot of women are curious about hot yoga and cold exposure while they're pregnant. Did Dr. Sims offer any insights there?
So for hot yoga, she said it can be really beneficial because it increases blood flow,
Right.
but you absolutely have to avoid overheating and stay super hydrated.
Got it. So hot yoga with caution. What about cold exposure? Are those cold plunges we talked about a no-go during pregnancy?
Yeah, she recommended being a bit more cautious with that, especially early on in pregnancy.
Okay.
Extreme cold can potentially be risky.
Right, so maybe best to save the polar bear plunges for after the baby arrives.
Exactly, but she did mention that gentle cold exposure, like a cool shower, can feel really good, especially for managing any swelling or discomfort.
Okay, that's good to know. Now, before we wrap up this awesome deep dive, we have to talk about that whole menstrual blood analysis thing you mentioned earlier. Dr. Sims seemed really excited about the potential there.
Oh yeah, it's seriously cutting edge stuff, and it's totally changing the game for women's health. Dr. Sims explained that menstrual blood, it's like this gold mine of information about what's going on with our hormones.
Wow.
And now they're even developing these at-home tests that can give us all these incredible insights.
So instead of dreading our periods, we can actually use them to learn more about our bodies. That's amazing.
I know, it's like empowering. These tests can potentially detect things like HPV, PCOS, endometriosis, and even tell us about our hormone balance and fertility.
Seriously, that's incredible. It's like having this like secret window into our health that we never had before. I think Dr. Sims is really like a pioneer in this field, pushing the boundaries of how we think about women's health.
Oh, absolutely. Her work is all about giving women the knowledge and the tools to take charge of their health, and advocate for themselves.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. I feel like we've learned so much about how to optimize our health and well-being at every age and stage.
It's been amazing diving into Dr. Sims's work with you. She really emphasizes that our bodies are incredible and they're capable of amazing things. We just have to give them what they need.
So true. So this is your friendly reminder to ditch those old-school rules that aren't serving you. Listen to your amazing body and embrace everything that comes with being a woman.
Here's to strong, healthy, empowered women everywhere.